Hey there, and welcome to the GLORIO blog's newest, hottest podcast, Legend of the GLORIO Heroes, where we will be watching the original Legend of the Galactic Heroes OVA and talking about it here.
For the first time. This has never been done before, as
Never
far as I
been-
know.
Yes, never been done before. Unprecedented.
Nobody has
Capitalizing-
ever podcasted a show before.
Exactly. Nobody's ever done an anime an anime recap podcast ever, and certainly not for Legend of the Galactic Heroes, an anime released in 1988. But
And ran until like 97 or something.
yes, pretty long running, all said and done. Always weird to think about the fact that it ends a couple years short of 2000 in retrospect. But anyways, some introductions. Even though there's just two of us, I'm G. I'll be your host. I am semi-regular on the GLORIO Chat podcast and resident mecha and old shit enthusiast. And with me on this journey amongst the sea of stars is GLORIO blog stalwart Iro.
Hi. Yeah, as far as I know, I've been on every episode of the GLORIO Chat so far.
Yeah, that's why I called you stalwart. You're reliable, like a good, like a good helmsman or
Am
or
I
a
reliable,
navigator.
or can you just not get rid of me because of nepotism? Same thing, really.
Yes. As as we'll talk about in Legend of the Galactic Heroes, sometimes it goes both ways. But so if you're new to the series, then maybe this will be the perfect companion for your own journey amongst the sea of stars. Basically our plan is to watch a few episodes every couple of weeks and then record our reactions and thoughts to it in the off weeks between each GLORIO Chat podcast. And let's see what else. How about a brief history lesson, I guess, for those unfamiliar. Legend of the Galactic Heroes is a science fiction anime adaptation of Yoshiki Tanaka's novel series of the same name.
You might know that guy's name from the heroic legend of Arslan.
Yes, dude has a prolific career writing long-ass, pretty famous novels. He must be doing something right, even if the only way I've know his work is through the anime. As we alluded to, aired from 1988 until 1977. It's considered by many to be one of the high marks of anime science fiction. It recently got a modern remake known as
Neue These, I think?
I think you get it closer than I do most of the time. So yes, we'll go with that. That we watched the last season, and we were just so smitten with the show that we figured, now was the time.
Back to that old one.
Yeah,
that I've heard so much about.
Totally. We're gonna take on the original's daunting 110 episodes.
Oof. And that's not even talking about spin-off OVAs or movies or
this is just the quote-unquote
drama CDs.
Yeah, this is the quote-unquote bog standard issue Legend of the Galactic Heroes experience.
Though we did watch the first movie,
yes,
My Conquest is the Sea of Stars, which I believe takes place immediately prior to the first episode.
Correct.
And we also, as mentioned, watched Neue These last season.
Yes.
12 episodes of that.
Yes, 12 episodes. A pittance compared to the original, but yeah, and you know what? It was a good enough 10% that I'm totally down for more. So here we are.
Absolutely.
And we are here to talk about the first 3 episodes of Legend of the Galactic Heroes. That is Episode 1, In the Eternal Night, Episode 2, The Battle of Astarte, and Episode 3, Birth of the 13th Fleet. So, I don't know, let's get started. Iro, what did you think of Episode 1?
Man, there's a lot of people in that opening.
Yeah.
Just a lot of old-style dudes in a uniform.
There's a lot of people standing around in that show.
Also, man, that show just starts with the narrator saying that this galaxy is not but an insignificant island in the vastness of the universe, and then millions of people proceed to die.
Look, man, the universe, space is a big place,
It really is a very big place.
and it definitely speaks to the show's ability to. I mean, I think we will grant here that because we watched the new TV series earlier, some of this is treading old ground for us. So,
Yes.
forgive us if we're not like super caught off guard by things right now. But
Hmm.
as the show goes on, I imagine the twists will come hot and hard. But
Yeah, but
for now, yeah, this
yeah,
first episode is does a good job of for the gargantuan scale of Legend of the Galactic Heroes. I think the first episode does a pretty decent job of
starting us off.
yeah, by focusing on a battle, it's a good way to be like, hey, we know that. Look, we know this show is a lot of people standing on ship bridges, talking to each other, and sadly staring out the window. So
But here
here,
are
have
some
a
dudes to latch on to.
right. Like here are some charismatic characters to latch onto, and here's a pretty neat space fight.
Yep.
So yeah, so we are introduced to our kind of dueling protagonists of this story. Reinhard von Lohengram of the Galactic Empire, and is it Commodore Yang Wen
Commodore.
Li of the Free Planets Alliance. These two factions have been at it for a while,
Yeah.
like 100 fucking years or something at this
100,
point. I think
100
they
years,
say.
150 years.
Yeah,
It's a bit difficult. Maybe it's a little hard to figure out because they both have separate calendars,
also that yes,
which
which
I actually really love.
oh totally, it's a fantastic little detail that really. I mean, I think we're gonna sound like broken records sometimes on this podcast, but the thing that Legend of the Galactic Heroes does a fantastic job of is kind of nailing the realities of not just statecraft, but how governments are run, how societies are structured. It's
Right.
it's the subtle things that nations do to differentiate themselves. Like, of
Yeah.
course, the Free Planets Alliance is going to use a different calendar, from the
I think
autocratic fascist government they broke away from.
the Empire. I think it's the Empire broke away from the Alliance. I think because their calendar is a smaller number than
Oh,
this.
is it?
Okay, let's see here. I pulled up my screenshots. Space year UC 796, Imperial year RC 487.
Oh, huh. Okay. I could have sworn.
I
Maybe
I
that's
think the Empire's calendar starts from the origination of the Golden Baum dynasty.
okay. I was gonna say maybe it starts from the founding of the current dynasty because I could have sworn the FPA is the one who broke away, but I don't remember if
I
I
honestly don't know.
if I read that in a supplementary material or if they mentioned that in the original TV show. I don't
I
remember.
have no
So
idea.
let's instead of speculating about things we don't quite remember correctly,
There's
let's
also
just move on.
one thing I do remember is the third faction, the was it the Republic of
Fezzan,
Fezzan,
yes.
sitting nice and cozy between warring sides, but staying neutral.
Yeah, no, totally. We have, Fezzan, which is, playing the role that many countries in the past have played of the neutral third party that in many ways seeks to gain from playing both sides against each other.
A
And
lot of cutting bak to that bald guy sitting in his
yeah,
office, being like,
and
"Ha
it's
ha! I'm playing both
all
sides."
according to plan. Yes, all according to Keikaku, so to speak. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't think the original show focused on Fezzan as much, and
Yeah, they didn't show up. The dude didn't like he showed up in the show, but
later
not
episodes.
until
But I
later.
think I think it's interesting, and I think maybe that's the OVA's way of trying to communicate to us that Fezzan will be more important than
Right.
it may initially be letting on.
Yeah.
I think I don't think we're going to end up in a situation where suddenly, because it's not that kind of show. I don't think Fezzan's going to suddenly be like, "Aha! I have all the power now," and then the Empire and the FPA are forced to team up to take
Oh
down the true
no, that
bad guy.
doesn't
Like,
seem.
it's
I
definitely
don't
not
think
that kind of
that's
show.
yeah.
But I do think, I think, to to get to this theme of Legend of the Galactic Heroes, where I think that one of the things we do love about it is its pseudo historical presentation, the way it
Yes.
speaks of the events in its show as a historical document of a world. And it's the thing that I was talking about when we were first watching the TV remake, that Legend of the Galactic Hero doesn't have lore. Like, lore is not a good enough word for Legend of the Galactic Hero's backstory. Legend of the Galactic Heroes has history.
Yes.
It has,
It's got that weight behind it.
yeah, there's a weight to the world that's been built for it. And as a result, because of that and the way the nations act in these super relatable, believable ways, I look at Fezzan and I think to a lot of real world parallels of small nations that had huge impacts on conflicts because they were in the right place at the right time to capitalize on weakness, or
Mhm.
they backed the right horse or what have you. And we don't have a lot to work with for now, but
Yeah.
I think Adrian Rubinsky and Fezzan are, they're he's up to some shit. He's not necessarily the sketchiest guy we've met in the show so far, but we'll talk about some of the other sketchy ass motherfuckers in this show later. But
So episode 1 kind of starts with the Battle of Astarte beginning, and Reinhard von Hohenlohe and his second Kirkeyes are in charge of the Imperial fleet,
yes,
outnumbered 3-1 or 2-1.
I think in pure numbers they're outnumbered 2-1, but
Yes, and
the
they're
free
being
planet
surrounded
yeah.
as the FPA's fleet splits into 3, hit them from all sides.
And that's the thing is, like, I don't want to throw too much shade at the FPA command structure because theoretically this is not necessarily an unsound plan. Most armies break pretty easily when they're surrounded on all sides.
Right.
But we see here with this first episode the beginning of what may be a long trend in the FPA command structure of genuinely talented younger officers chafing under the rule of dreadfully incompetent leadership.
Yep.
And this theme that resonates throughout Legend of the Galactic Heroes of good men and women, intelligent men and women being in the right place but not under the right circumstances to make the changes that could push this in a different direction.
Yeah. A bunch
And
of dude on the bridge saying, "What are your recommendations for this situation, Yang Wen Li? How
and
about
then
I immediately ignore your recommendations, Yang Wen Li?"
right, exactly. A lot of young Wen Li, beleagueredly being like, "Hey, if you would look at this clipboard, uh, bad shit ahead, Captain," and everybody just being like, "I'm gonna get back to my space steak. We'll talk about this later."
The fucking fancy pants officers sitting in their mess
Oh
hall,
man,
they're
right in their fucking
eating
nice
fancy
ass mess
food,
hall. Yeah,
like.
nah, totally.
uh,
And
the one
and
time
that's
we see Jean-Robert Lapp eating fancy food in the mess hall, talking about
uh,
how dumb the officers are.
yeah, and I think, and that's the thing, right? And also, it's about people who are in the right place at the right time. Reinhard von Lohengram, you know, commander of the Imperial forces at this battle, is in the right place at the right time, and he has overriding authority over the whole battle.
Right, as he
And
was promoted to High Admiral at
yeah,
the end of the film.
yes, and I think this speaks to one of the primary conflicts of Legend of the Galactic Heroes, which is the kind of inherent political push and pull between a democracy and you know and autocracy, I guess,
Yeah.
or to go further in that direction, a fascist dictatorship. But you know,
Yang Wen Li knows, like, comes up with the right plans, but also backs down because he once followed chain of command
Right,
to a
because
certain extent.
Yang Wenli, he has the power, he has the smarts, but he knows that staging a mutiny sets a bad precedent for what is theoretically a democratically elected republic. But and
Whereas Reinhard will bring in all of the other admirals to his bridge to tell them to fuck off.
yeah, and I think that's kind of the thing, right? It's I don't want to I don't think or here, how about I'll put it this way? I am dreadfully wary of fence sitters in real life, especially in 2018, who are like,
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
man, it's like, aren't
We need
both
to hear
sides the
both
worst?
sides.
It's like,
We need to make sure we need to treat these Nazis with respect.
yeah, it's like, fuck off with that shit. But I think in many ways, Legend of the Galactic Heroes does offer a more nuanced take on that idea of, for example, with Yang Wen Li, the democracy is theoretically good, but when it is supported by a corrupt leadership, it it fails to achieve its means. Whereas,
Yeah.
Reinhard in his theoretical, perfect God King, dictatorship, it's
he's calling all the
autocracy.
shots, and he's calling the right shots apparently because he keeps
Right.
winning. So
E-
what's the problem?
exactly. And, I think, or more, I hope, but also because of how impressed I've been with Legend of Galactic Heroes approach, I, th- I do think eventually this show is going to start exploring, you know, the weaknesses of the way Reinhard runs things. Because right now he's
I
doing
hope.
great, right? He's
Yeah.
winning fights. He's putting all the uppity commanders, that are bad at their jobs in their place. It's
Right.
very easy to look at and be like, well, why wouldn't we want Reinhard in charge of everything?
Yeah.
Like,
Based
especially
on the movie and this episode so far, it's
right.
been him winning and Yang Wenli salvaging terrible situations to
Yes,
barely
totally.
escape.
And so it makes you wonder, it can't keep going like that, can it? I mean, because I think Legend of the Galactic Heroes, maybe it's because we live in what is supposed to be a theoretical democratically elected republic, so the failings of the FPA are more real to us.
It's
But
a hell of a time to be watching this show.
yeah, it's well, before we get into that, I guess we'll just say we'll sum up that, the second episode of Legend of the Galactic Heroes: The Battle of Astarte is yes, it's Yang uh, taking the reins for the FPA and salvaging the situation. But in many ways, you can't even call it a win because we're talking about a fight where the cards were so stacked in the FPA's favor
Right.
that at
That a
worst,
draw is
that a
a
draw
failing.
is damning. It is damning that you fought to a draw, and it says something that Yang took a situation that should have been an easy victory into a horrifying defeat and then managed to barely salvage it into a survivable retreat. And
Yeah.
all thanks to Yang's genius donut tactics formation,
This
which,
Ouroboros of ships
yes,
flying in space.
regardless of which version you saw, still looks fucking goofy as hell. But I do
Yes.
love it because in a ways it is a good summation of Yang himself. He's not concerned with winning in the most flashy, elegant way. What he's here to do is win fights and save lives, and
Yes.
that's what he does here. He
This episode where we get the like galaxy map of how these are lone corridors the only way between
yes,
the FPA and the Empire. And
yes, we
so the
learn.
entire war has been going on in this small band of stars,
Yeah,
apparently.
yeah, and yes, in this good ass space opera setting with this amazingly well named Iserlohn corridor, we get to kind of the tactical linchpin of this war between the Empire and the FPA. Basically, the Iserlohn corridor is guarded by the Empire built Iserlohn fortress, which kind of holds the only spot in galactic space through which either side can
Right.
pass. And yes,
Other
yes,
than
you can ask.
Fezzan,
Oh,
like,
yes,
which I think is kind of interesting.
I'm glad you brought that up because they didn't. They didn't mention that in the show,
But
but
it's totally right there on the map that
yes,
Fezzan
Fezzan
is the
is
other
the
way.
other way in, and I'm telling you, like that goes back to what
That's
I'm saying.
something's gonna happen there.
Something is going to happen. Fezzan is going to open up to one of the sides, and you know what? Because of the way this show goes, I bet Fezzan opens it up to the FPA, and they still fuck it up somehow
Uh,
because the FPA is just
uh,
so goddamn bad at their jobs when it's not Yang Wen Li at the reins. But you know, but yes, we have, this episode ends with Adrian Rubinsky, administrator, or I don't. Is he owner of the planet? Is he the governor? Like
the boss, the
the
CEO
boss,
of
the
Fezzan.
CEO of
I
the
don't
planet?
know.
Like did somehow did Legend of the Galactic Heroes predict our hell future where planets are ruled by corporations? Like, is Adrian Rubinsky just like fucking
uh,
evil centrist Elon Musk or something? But
Christ. Uh,
but, but yes, he gets news of the battle and he says that it doesn't matter. Like, doesn't matter if it was a draw. Sure, I was expecting a win one way or the other, but it's all part of the
I
plan.
mean, it doesn't stop both sides from declaring it a victory for
Yeah,
themselves.
oh, that too. And so we kind of get into the third episode, Birth of the 13th Fleet, where we kind of see the aftermath of this battle at um at Heinesen, the capital planet of the FPA,
Right. And
where
we learn that what, like, how much? I think Empire casualties was like 120,000
I think
compared to the 1.2 million casualties
yes,
on the
yes.
FPA side.
I think Empire casualties were closer to 400,000, but regardless, we're talking about six figures versus seven figures. All right, like at some point, the
Christ.
distinctions don't matter. Point is, FPA took a savage beating, and in classic military fashion, they still spin it as
Told a
a
rally on how they gave their lives for the motherland and freedom, and really they should be happy to die in service
yeah, totally,
of the
totally.
FPA.
We get a fantastic moment. We get a fantastic moment in this episode when uh um Lap's fiance Jessica Edwards receives
Yes.
news of her fiance's passing, and I guess yeah. Sorry, we forgot to mention that in episode 2, Jean Robert Lapp kind of bites it because he
He's a little, like, he. Maybe it's just because Neue These had more flashback stuff, or
yeah.
maybe this show will get to that even, but he shows up and I search my brain and go, "Oh right, that guy from the show, from the TV version," and then he just dies instantly.
Right. I mean, it's the thing of I think I don't want to necessarily say what is better than the other
Right.
because we're about to talk about a great scene in the
They're
OVA that
different.
doesn't show up in the TV series, but the TV series does have the benefit of having flashbacks for Yang Wen Li and Reinhardt
Yeah.
that you don't necessarily need in episode 2 or 3 or 4 or whenever they air, but they do help so much in fleshing out those characters and like
Right.
getting to the core of who they are
And I can
as
see
human
how
beings.
you might put those earlier when you have one core rather than
Yes.
110 episodes.
So who knows? We might get some of that stuff down the road, but for now, yes, Lap is kind of a weird footnote that really it's in this OVA. It's not Lap that matters as much as Jessica,
Yes,
and
for once.
yeah, and Jessica gets the message that oh
The battle's over. Let me
battle's
call in
over.
and ask about my fiance. Why is
And
his rank 2 ranks higher
right. Oh,
than
your
last
fiance
time when he
got a double
left?
promotion. Yeah,
Posthumously.
yeah. Posthumous promotions for everybody,
Yay!
and it's a really lovely moment. Not the moment itself, but it's a really lovely moment of storytelling because
Where half a second early they tell you his rank. And even though we
yes,
as viewers know, oh yeah, he's super dead, it's
it's that slow
man.
realization on Jessica's part
Yes.
that oh, soldiers don't get promotions for winning battles. Soldiers get promotions to make their loved ones feel better about their often
Yep.
pointless and tragic deaths, and that's what we get here with this moment. And I think it really
I really
does.
like how she hangs up mid sentence
Oh, totally,
on
totally.
the receptionist.
I mean, I think between her and Young, and Young's buddy that we haven't mentioned yet, who is excellently named Dusty Attenborough, uh, I think you get a lot of this in the FPA, where it speaks to people. The people of the FPA are not sheep, or at least the ones we've met so far. The they are not the mindless masses who just eat up the propaganda. Some are. I mean, obviously, as we see with the rally, but it shows that even in a corrupt system, people are not stupid. People will recognize the injustices. They will recognize the hypocrisy,
Yeah,
and they will not always toe the party line.
indeed.
And
Jessica interrupts this big political rally.
yeah, where
Just
we
walks
have
up to the stage.
yeah, what interrupts a speech given by also excellently named Job Trunicht, Secretary of Defense, who's given this big fucking overblown speech about how everybody who fought in the Battle of Astarte died in the name of democracy. They died defending the motherland. There is no prouder thing than to die for
And
this or die for that.
citizens of good sense, you'll support these statements as much as
And
possible.
exactly. And as you were talking about, Iro, Jessica interrupts this speech and basically fucking calls the job out. Is like, yeah, this is a nice speech, dude, but where were you?
Like 1.5 million people died or
Yeah,
whatever, and you're sitting safe in your fancy house.
your cushy office. Your
We'll get to that fucking
we'll get back to Job Trunicht's cushy office in a bit, but yeah, and kind of leads to the infamous screenshot of Job saying this woman has lost her composure. And
so the difference here between this and the TV version that we watched previously is, in that version, Young is at this rally
yes,
and like does not stand and applaud and cheer, and very conspicuously sits and in protest, even though he is the hero of the Battle of Astarte.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic moment. And again, I don't want to say that this show was necessarily addressing any specific thing in the modern zeitgeist, but in the current world we live in, where American citizens are being attacked by other American citizens because they won't stand for the anthem, because they're considered not patriotic enough, even though they're not soldiers, they're not politicians, they are literally athletes. They are being attacked for taking their
showing disrespect to the country.
What is theoretically their constitution guaranteed right to protest, they're being attacked for it. And I'm not saying that this moment was written with that in mind, because honestly, I doubt anybody in Japan knows about, this stuff. But I do think it was a good moment in the new TV show to have Yang, like, conspicuously, he's not like shouting, fuck the government or anything, but he is very much making a point that as a legal citizen of this country, I am not doing anything illegal. And y'all are doing some real shady shit by getting up in my face about this. And
right. In the OVA, he's just watching it at home. He refused to attend as protest.
Yes, where instead, here we get kind of a different version of it, where instead Yang becomes fucking super woke as hell and just starts dropping, the most fucking, like, damning lines about the FPA imaginable.
In any age, they're instigators.
Yes. Or how about the human race doesn't know what shame is? Which, some real good stuff. Yeah. And Yang continues to be woke as hell later in this episode.
Still, seeing that Jessica is now being manhandled by security.
Yeah, he
and Dusty Attenborough get a car
and Julian.
Her up. And Julian.
We haven't mentioned is that we are also introduced to Julian, who is I guess Yang's adopted ward. Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily son. I feel like they do a better job of explaining this in the TV show. Like they do explain.
I think that's another thing of let's put this flashback early.
Sure.
To like give more context.
Yes. I think that does help in the TV show, where you only have 12 episodes to work with, whereas the OVA, which has 110 episodes, can maybe save that explanation for later. But yes, Julian is the I guess, kind of military approved ward of, another officer in the military, in this case being Yang Wenli, where, Yang Wenli basically just treats him as, kind of a glorified butler of sorts.
Eh,
Which,
put some brandy in my tea, Julian.
yes, I guess not necessarily butler, but you know what I mean when I'm saying that. Theoretically, I assume this program is probably for officers to, teach young kids about, oh, this is what the military is like. Whereas Young's just
Yeah.
like, kid, it ain't worth it.
I feel like the TV series kind of framed it as like, it sort of framed it as Yang taking advantage of his relatively privileged position to like help an orphan or some shit.
Yes. The TV series definitely frames it more like Yang is using his privilege and rank and financial status to help someone else out.
Yeah. But Yulian
But
seems like a real good kid.
Julian's a good kid, and, I hope he goes far. I
Yeah.
hope he goes far.
Considering the ending sequence of this show,
It is weirdly heavily emphasized on Julian rather than Yang,
yes,
which fills me with a certain degree of dread about the future of this show.
Oh boy.
But we'll worry about that maybe 50 episodes from now.
Anyway, Jessica Edwards is removed from the premises by security. Joe Trunicht immediately calls for the national anthem to be played.
Yeah, and then not only that, but then Six, the fucking
Patriotic Night Corps.
Excuse me, the Patriotic Night Corps on Jessica.
Yeah, in the TV series, they look like KKK dudes.
And
here they look like Kamen Rider books. They're praise the Dark Lord of Shocker.
Right. They look like a combination of like jackboot thugs and a post-apocalyptic biker gang, which is
skull masks
and you know what? I got to admit, it's hard to tell which look I prefer for your like uber toxic patriotic, fucking hate group. Basically, they're both very good looks for evoking like who these kind of people are. And thanks to a last-minute save by our boys, she manages to
Young and Dusty.
Arm. Yeah, and but of course, the Patriotic Night Corps are hot on their tail and corner Yang back at his home, where we get the excellent line from Yang that is the freedom to break into other people's homes part of our constitution. In which, yes, basically, the Patriotic Night Corps try to fucking lynch Yang Wenli, supposed hero of Battle of Astarte, because he's not patriotic enough. And
I think my actual favorite line in this episode, though, is Julian is all, how come none of our neighbors are doing anything? And Yang says that the freedom to not get involved is perhaps the most valued freedom we have in this country.
It's very good.
Oh boy.
Oh man.
Oh shit.
I know.
Oh man.
Oh yeah. It's like, when this show hits, it hits hard, man. It goes to show that this freaking 30-year-old show still manages to hit as hard as it does. It's wild. It speaks to a very keen, real understanding of the nature of politics and society that I think most media, like most fictional media, rarely ever get.
And that's why we can have stuff like applying him sitting during the rally to like football players kneeling during the national anthem.
Yeah, because
it's stuff that's applicable to all times, and not
even if it's not a 1-1, right? Like even if it isn't a 1-1, analogy, it speaks to the idea that the author understood that no, there are people have always protested the anthem. They have always tried to protest and argue their right to be unpatriotic, and people have always pushed against that. This is not anything new. In some ways it's depressing to realize that time is a flat circle, but
this again, we're referring to the TV series, but the first lines in that are how excuse me, these events are fictitious and may resemble things you may resemble real events, or rather, the usual disclaimer you see is, this may resemble, like, any resemblance to actual events is entirely coincidental, but fucking Legend of Galactic Heroes saying it's possible that this could seem like real events, and also it's inevitable.
Yes, it's so good. Like, it speaks to how, I mean, in many ways, it speaks to how confident Legend of the Galactic Heroes is in its understanding of human nature, that it can just come out on stage and be like, hey, we're about to get real. We're not necessarily talking about, any specific figure in mind, any specific political event, any specific war or controversy, but
these things always happen multiple times, multiple places.
Yeah, they're all, there's... Yeah, just...
Yep.
It's a cycle, I suppose. But anyways, Yang manages to fend off the attackers with a fire hose, and
pointing out that if there's a fire, the emergency services will come. Maybe not if you call the cops, because maybe the cops support the Patriotic Night Corps, but if there's a fire,
somebody's got to show up.
Yep.
Yeah. And so after that, we have a great scene where Yang gets, drives to Job Trunicht's office and confronts him about today's events, where we are then treated to the glorious image of Job Trunicht's
fucking office
of himself. Oh, I was going to say that, but fine. 3 portraits of himself. Initially, we only see 2.
So fucking...
Initially, we see Job Trunicht standing in his office in front of 2 poorly painted, might I add, portraits of himself in his own office, and you already know
this guy's a fucking dirtbag.
This guy is fucking scum. Like, y'all...
I'm giving a side eye to anyone who's got 1 portrait of himself in their office.
But 2?
2.
And then, as we said, yes, and then later, once the fucking camera zooms out, we see fucking 3 portraits. Dude's got 3 portraits of himself in his room. How fucking narcissistic can you get?
I also want to point out he was drinking what appears to say super whiskey.
Super whiskey. Only the best for Secretary of Defense Job Trunicht.
Fucking...
But, yeah, we got a great moment here where Yang is... basically, Yang understands politics enough to know that just because he's fended off the Patriotic Night Corps this time, does not guarantee the safety of Jessica. Yang, assumes and, is fairly confident that he has enough military clout that he's probably not going to get lynched in the streets out of nowhere. Probably. But Jessica is definitely still at risk. And so he goes right up to Job and, and all but explicitly says, hey, you're not going to do this again, are you? And of course, Job gives the bullshit explanation of like, oh, those Patriotic Night Corps, oh, those true patriots, oh, their methods are a bit extreme, but I wish I could control them, but they're just so passionate about the country. And Yang is having none of this fucking shit.
I think it's really great that it just cuts back to Yang and he just like frowns.
Total stone face, not even a word, just dead-eyed stares back at Job until Job is just like, but...
got it, fine.
Okay, got it. And, it speaks to that, it shows that, yes, Yang is a nice guy. Yes, Yang is our perfect, wonderful boy who can do no wrong and deserves a happy life reading all the history books he wants.
Drinking his tea.
Drinking his quote-unquote tea. But for the people he cares about and for the principles he believes in, he will put his foot down and he will suffer no fools. And, then after that, we kind of...
For his services... He is promoted.
Yes, promoted to, was it Rear Admiral?
Something like Vice.
Or Rear Admiral. Rear Commander, something like that. I apologize.
In charge of his own fleet.
Yes. Basically, he's in charge of his own fleet. He is
his own half-assed.
Yes, his own half-assed fucking sent to die fleet, the 13th Fleet, where Yang is commanded by the the top brass to capture Iserlohn Fortress.
Never mind that, like, they've tried to do this 6 or 7 times before, and has failed every single time.
Right, so we didn't really mention that, but part of, like, Legend of Galactic Heroes' wonderful historical approach to its backstory is we're told of not just the first Battle of Iserlohn or the second Battle of Iserlohn, but there have been multiple failed campaigns to take Iserlohn and, secondary battles related to it. And so you get this idea that, oh, Yang has been tasked with basically the impossible. And in many ways, I think the OVA portrays it a little bit more sympathetically. I feel like in the TV series, it very much felt to me like elements of the top brass were basically trying to send Yang to die. I feel like in the OVA, they phrase it a bit more like, well, shit, Yang, if you can't take Iserlohn Fortress, none of us can.
Right.
And, the half fleet thing is maybe more, on Admiral Sithol's part. Is it Sithole, Sitolette? We don't really quite know because the subs translated differently every time.
Yeah.
But, we'll use the OVA translations for now because just to keep it consistent. But yes, so Admiral Sitolette, is basically like the only dude in the upper brass that is in Yang's corner. And in many ways, you could maybe see this as maybe it's not that he only gave Yang half a fleet, but maybe realistically, half a fleet is all he could get for Yang.
Right.
Like, because we're repeatedly
all he
shown
could, like, write off as giving to this guy.
Right, because we're shown multiple times that the top brass do not like Yang. And, in some ways it's understandable. He is a dude who walks to the beat of his own drum. He is very much not a military man. He repeatedly states he doesn't like being a soldier.
Yeah.
He wants to be a historian. The TV series goes into his backstory where he literally joins the military because it's the only university with a good history program. It's... It gets, but, maybe I'll get into that.
I'm also going to pay my tuition and also join the military.
Yes, exactly. And so, so this kind of episode basically ends with Yang given this impossible task. And, we're asked the question, this might be, the magician Yang, the hero of, what was it? Shoot, the hero of...
Hero of El Facil.
Yes, the hero of El Facil, the hero of Astarte. But all of his heroics, all of his heroics have been saving people's lives. They've always been salvaging lost situations. But now we are asked, can Yang take the offensive and can he win? And
well, we have seen Neue These, so
yes, but so we kind of know how it goes. But still, I think it is a good question that this show asks: is Yang just a one-trick pony, or can he truly master, all arts of warfare? And
okay, so if Yang sat alone in the middle of Iserlohn or the city and played his lyre, and
the enemy commander got so bugged out he retreated in fear of Yang's next cunning plan. I mean, we yes, we can joke about the romance of the Three Kingdoms, connections here, but Yang truly is operating on some fucking 12th dimensional chess shit here. I mean, the only time Reinhardt ever breaks a sweat in these 3 episodes is when he's talking about that man, that commander, that man in the FPA, and there he's talking about Yang. It's a thing of I want to see Yang push Reinhardt's shit in so bad.
Oh yeah,
like
absolutely.
We have seen Yang beat Reinhardt. Well, he basically gets point blank to Reinhardt and basically does the space battle equivalent of holding a gun to his head in the movie.
That was in the movie.
And in the TV show, he manages to salvage the situation, but we've never seen Yang just actually go head to head with Reinhardt. And I hope that battle comes up eventually. Because they just keep building it up. They keep building up Reinhardt's seemingly tactical invincibility and Yang's continuous attempts to salvage the FPA's disastrously incompetent leadership. But
I mean, yeah, like if you keep having, even if you keep escaping, if you keep losing this bad repeatedly, something's gonna give.
Yeah, but we'll see. But
we'll see. We're only
Anyways,
2% of the way
yeah,
through.
we're about roughly 2% through our journey across the Sea of Stars. But, Iro, how do
Yeah.
you feel about the first 3 episodes?
I am really enjoying it. I'm excited to see where we go from here. I want to, my brain is turning on how, where's it going? There's so much.
Right. It's a thing where this show juggles so many plates and juggles them all fairly effectively. You have your two sides, you have your viewpoint characters, you have their supporting casts, you have the politics going on behind each side. You have Fezzan hanging out doing its own shit. You have you know you have the episode examining FPA society. You have the episodes talking about battlefield tactics and warfare. It's a show that handles so many elements so
Yeah.
effectively that it just makes you want to see all of them explored to their fullest.
Yeah. Definitely.
We spoke about it a bit at the start, but I think for a lot of people looking at Legend of the Galactic Heroes, it's intimidating, not just because of its length, but its scale. When you're told, oh, these are battles numbering in the millions of people, and each side has a dozen named characters, not even
Yeah.
exaggerating, a dozen named characters on each side of the battle. I can see why someone gets intimidated. You think, there's no way I can remember all these people's names. And I think
Yeah.
the show initially presents itself as that, but I think it actually very quickly reassures you,
Yeah.
don't worry, here are the main characters,
Yes.
here are the people
Zooms
you should
in
pay
very
attention
fast.
to. Yes.
Maybe a million people are dying this battle, but you can focus on this guy, and we see their motivations and their actions,
Right.
and by seeing what one person can do, it lends a weight to all of those numbers that otherwise would be nothing.
Right. I think that really gets to what the Legend of the Galactic Heroes does so effectively is humanize the scale of the space opera.
Yeah. How many other people the same rank, the same depth as Jean-Robert Lapp died during that battle?
Exactly. How many people were like Lap? How many people saw the writing on the wall in that fight, but could do nothing to stop it? And that's the thing. I think they're obviously going to be more characters, but they're doing a very good job of introducing them slowly because we do get a couple of scenes with Yang's wider supporting cast like Kazelnu and Julian, and with Reinhard we see Mittermeier and Oberstein and all of freaking Reinhard's top generals, and I think eventually those people will matter.
Yeah.
But for now, they're doing a very good job of introducing them slowly, and it does a good job of. Yes, like in the first episode when Reinhard is talking to all of his Empire commanders, yeah, all of them are named, but none of them show up afterward. And maybe they'll show up later, but for now, all that really does is help us understand, okay, these are characters in this setting, but that doesn't necessarily mean we need to worry about keeping track of every single one of them.
Yeah.
At least for now. And it speaks to the show's ability to say, oh, look how vast this setting is. Look how grand this setting is. But don't worry. For now, Yang Wen Li, Reinhard von Lohengrin, Kirky Eyes, Dusty Attenborough, Jessica Edwards, Julian, that's it. Just, you don't need to focus on too many people for now. It's... and you're right. It humanizes it. It humanizes the scale of this war. Because just like Lap, think about Jessica, right? How many people like Jessica, right? Fathers, mothers, wives, husbands, children, parents are like that, or being told, "Oh, congratulations, your father got 2 promotions because he died in the war." We didn't talk about that, but there was that scene in episode 3, right, where the grandmother and her grandkid is like, oh, it's Yang Wen Li, the
I want to
hero.
be a cool soldier like you.
Right, oh, my husband and son died in the war, but my grandkid also wants to go become a soldier. And it's oh man, it just... You can see the heartbreak in Yang's eyes, how deep this goes. You know how tragically embedded this society is in warfare. You know,
150 years.
150 years, generations, people have lived and died never knowing peace. And what does it say that Yang's greatest hope is? I hope that by the time your grandchild is old enough to join the military, he won't need to.
Yeah.
And how faint of a hope that is realistically, because this war has been going on for over a century. It's probably not stopping anytime soon.
Yeah.
But you know, and you know what? It may that's what, as much as we were joking about it, you know,
Was
in
the
the
first
GLORIO
thing.
Chat
Yeah.
podcast, like I don't mind if there are a dozen goddamn scenes of Yang Wenli staring sadly at the window, because each and every single one of them is filled with an undeniable human weight to it.
Yes. I'm actually a little interested in going forth, like, because we're super on the side of Yang Winley at this point.
Right.
But
right.
And like, based presumably, because Reinhardt's like on the covers of everything,
Yeah.
and fucking gets top billing on the opening, and I feel like the show wants to present them as two equal heroes, you know, battling it out. But also, perhaps it's just the society we live in. But boy, I'm cheering for Yang, and fuck that Reinhardt guy.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think even in the TV series, the best we ever arrived with Reinhardt is after his flashback episode.
He cares about his sister.
Right. Well, not even that, but we understood where he's coming from because of the system he grew up in.
Yes.
Like, we didn't necessarily say, oh, poor Reinhardt, or oh, poor sympathetic Reinhardt, but we could understand where does a person like that come from when they are raised in a system like the one he was born in. But this OVA is not doing that. So for now, Yang is this perfect, inalienable bastion of democracy and tactical acumen, and Reinhardt is just this kind of boring, invincible, pretty boy genius. It's like
like one shot of his sister, his like allegedly beautiful and perfect and wonderful and amazing sister.
Like once again, almost like the flashback episode that the OVA only like briefly touches upon. You know, the best thing Reinhardt has going for him is Kirky Eyes. It's Kirky Eyes who, you know, Reinhardt's like right hand man, and is perhaps Reinhardt's humanizing element. You know, he is the one person Reinhardt can feel comfortable being himself around, and
we dare to lean in and ask, "Are you frustrated?"
Yes, you know, the one person who, as we see in that 5-second flashback, is told by Reinhardt's sister, please take care of Reinhardt. And we understand already implicitly how much Kirky Eyes means to Reinhardt. And but because Kirky Eyes is not the main character of the Imperial side, it's not enough to carry it, at least for now.
Yeah.
And
so I'm curious if they will flesh out more.
Really. I hope they do. I really hope they do, because you're right. If Reinhardt is as prominent a character as he is shown in all of the material, I don't want to watch 90 episodes of Reinhardt. I like Reinhardt as a foil to Yang. I think he's a good foil because, you know, they essentially represent the best traits of their opposing sides. You know, Reinhardt is, you know, he runs his generalship like a meritocracy. He recruits the best men regardless of their status, which is considered unheard of in the Empire. And he wins because he delegates. So in many ways, he's more like the FPA than, you know, the FPA themselves sometimes. And then Yang's strength comes from his singular tactical genius. Yang is at his best when he is given full control of a situation, because he's able to micromanage every facet of it. And there are probably people who wish Yang was the supreme commander of the FPA.
We just made him on top, you take care of everything, and we just listen to everything he says. And he knows what he's doing.
Right, but he never would, because he believes too strongly in democracy. And as foils, they work great, but I can't see Reinhardt carrying this show by himself.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just the way the shows are focused. Because again, we only got to the original, not the original, the TV remake only got to 12 episodes, which
Yes.
didn't have that much Reinhardt viewpoint stuff anyway.
Mhm.
Maybe Reinhardt's, maybe the episodes devoted to fleshing him out come later in the in the OVA, later in the story,
Yeah.
and maybe once we get more of that, then we'll grow to better appreciate him. But for now, I'm like you. I'm like, what's
All
so
Yang,
special about
baby.
Reinhardt? Yeah, they all Yang all the way, baby. You know, magician Yang. You know, he's gonna fucking, he's gonna clean this shit up. I hope.
Hopefully.
But you're right. Now I'm worried about, like, what if there isn't all that much for Reinhardt, and Reinhardt's popularity is just because of society's weird, unfortunate fascination with monarchies. Like, what if the only reason Reinhardt is popular is because he's pretty and he's a king, or probably going to be a king soon, you know? Like, if that's all Reinhardt actually has going for him, is that he's that he's too perfect, that his curse is, oh, he's too perfect, he can't be himself around anybody but Kirkias. How tragic! Like, dog, that is not enough to make me watch 90 episodes.
Yeah. Well, we're only 3 episodes in.
Right. Let's remind ourselves
let's hope that it will get fleshed out.
Yes, that for the OVA, we are only 3 episodes in, and that the next episode 4, is a Reinhardt-focused episode. So,
okay,
we will see more of him, and he will have his chance to impress us. But anyways,
yeah.
I think that's good for today.
Yeah.
Hey, 60 minutes, not too bad for our inaugural episode. Our maiden voyage. I think we rambled a bit, but hopefully we managed to bring it all back in the end. So
it just means it's casual, friendly.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to look, the rest of the GLORIO blog, they're giving us shit about how much we like this show, about how could possibly anybody enjoy watching this, but fuck them.
So boring.
I love this show. I'm
really enjoying it.
Yeah, it's just so much what I want out of good science fiction, especially.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, housekeeping. Yes, right. So I'm trying to remember what Jell always says at the end of the podcast.
Find all of our writing.
Yes, you can read all our content and hear all our podcasts on theglorioblog.com. You can follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. Are we on iTunes?
I think we are, yeah.
Okay,
pretty sure we are.
I guess we're on iTunes.
I believe this is just going into the same feed as the normal podcast.
Okay. Then look for this in the GLORIO Chat feed. Maybe we'll split it apart later. I don't know. Like and subscribe. Leave a 5-star rating. I don't know.
Tell your friends.
Tell your enemies, all that good shit. And
we're not sure how many episodes we're doing per podcast yet.
Yeah.
I think it depends on our schedules. We're busy men.
Yes. For now, we think we'll plan to stick to 3 episodes per episode. I mean, yes. Well, 3 episodes per podcast.
Yeah.
If we feel more comfortable, or the shit just gets so good we got to keep watching, we might increase it
to like 5-ish.
5,
I don't know.
5 or so. But for now, we just want to leave it at a pace where neither of us feel pressured to keep up.
Yeah.
So apologies to everybody else who's like, why the fuck does it take these guys 2 weeks to watch 3 episodes of anime? Look, even in a season as kind of garbage as this one, there's still a lot of shows to watch.
Yep. We got a lot going on.
Yeah. So with all that taken care of, thank you, Iro. Thank you for
thank you.
Yeah, for accompanying me on this journey. I hope we see this through to the end, man. I really do.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad we're finally setting off on this.
Me too.
So with that, see you all next time amongst the sea of stars.